anti-forecast for the week of March 12th, 2023. What do I mean by anti-forecast? Is this flummery? No, it's not. But there will be a lot of flummery this coming week. This is a week. Here's your, if you want to stop listening after 20 seconds, here's the take-home message. Not this week. Not this week. This is a great week for some things, but when it comes to practical stuff, the answer is not this week. We have between Tuesday and Thursday, but really Monday onwards, we have such a pileup of planets in Pisces, that we are really unable to do much in the way of practical stuff. Now, Pisces doesn't mean that you can't be practical. That doesn't mean that at all. But in addition to having Saturn newly in Pisces, we also have the Sun and Mercury meeting with Neptune down at the end of Pisces. Now, when Mercury meets with Neptune, and this is happening at midweek, Mercury meets with Neptune, we tend to get the information wrong. What tends to happen is not so much that people lie, although some people lie. It's not necessarily that people are intentionally deceitful, although they might be. They might, in fact, wind up deceiving themselves more than anybody else. And if you try to pull a fast one with this sort of energy, you might wind up tripping yourself up. It's so unreliable and so vague that you can't even really count on, you can't even count on a lie, even your own. And then the Sun meets with Neptune in Pisces. And when the Sun meets with Neptune, we tend to make heroes and demons out of ordinary people. We tend to see too much or too little in a situation or in a person. It's just not a practical energy for assessing people and making decisions. You know, everything could be wonderful. This is going to be great. This is going to be the best thing ever. Or everything is going to be, it's all no good. You know, it's a little bit like maybe you've had this experience, you know, you're out with your friends and it gets to a certain hour of the night and you've had a few drinks and stuff like that. And, you know what we should do? We should all get together and, you know, you got the big plans to, you know, for the gigantic trip where you invite everybody over next weekend for, you know, and then, you know, you wake up the next day and you're like, oh gosh, oh, what was I thinking? I don't want to go to Florida for a week with these people. That it's that kind of, well, the having a few cocktails and thinking something is great is sort of the energy of this week. And next week then is more like waking up the next day. On the other hand, it's also equally possible that you kind of sink into it's all so hopeless kind of depression. And that's ridiculous too. That's also very unrealistic. So don't make plans. Don't make practical plans this week. Just leave it be. There's such a mashup. The energy builds from Monday. It's exact on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then on Friday, it's St. Patrick's Day, which certainly in many cities in the northeastern United States is just an extension of the Neptunian energy for sure. So not practical stuff this week. What's this week? Is it good for nothing? Is this a good for nothing week? Not at all. But what I would say that is great for this week is to take some time. First of all, it's a great week to escape in a nice way. You know, take a drive to nowhere or, you know, whatever, however you get around. Take a nice walk in nature. Go to the beach. You know, it's Pisces season. We're in there with this Piscean energy. Go look at the water. If you're not near the beach, you know, go look at a stream or, you know, whatever, just the reservoir, sewage treatment plant, you know, water. It's a little Piscean, actually. So it's good for that type of thing. Meander, just let things happen, let things flow. Don't try to do anything, let things flow. Watch movies, binge a television show if that's the kind of thing you want to do. It's a great time to listen to music. Just, get out the albums and put them on the hi-fi, and enjoy some of your favorite tunes. That's a fun thing to do. That's great for this week. There's all those the Lord of the Rings movies and all that kind of thing that go on forever and ever and ever, and you can watch those things. I'm sure that TNT or some channel like that will be running those things. That's a good thing to do this week. But you know what? What about Saturn in Pisces? Isn't he maybe giving us a few ideas? I think Saturn in Pisces is giving us a few ideas about how to make the most of this week. Saturn in Pisces, we're looking for a little bit of discipline. Saturn in Pisces, spiritual stuff. So you know what? It'd be a good week to meditate. It would be a good week to pray. It would be a good week to do whatever your spiritual, and if you don't have a spiritual program, if there's nothing that you're doing that is really very much in that ballpark, well, it'd be a good time to start thinking about developing one, giving it a try. Go on retreat. That would be a nice, you probably can't just pick up and go on retreat, like, all right, yeah, it's Pisces season, you know. Even trying to find a good Airbnb could be a problem with this energy out there. I could imagine it'd be very difficult, actually. But, you can go on retreat in your mind. It's a great time for creative projects. That's another thing that is the different side of Pisces there. Just focus on process, don't look at the product, just focus on the process. What does it feel like? How does, what's coming through? With all this Piscean energy, it's, anybody could become a channel with this. It's like you're channeling the energy. Pisces just opens us up, and we have the Sun and Mercury together with Neptune in Pisces. And we have this deluge of Pisces energy coming in, Piscean energy coming in, and the ability to work with it for the purpose of creativity for its own sake. Right? For its own sake. You're enjoying drawing, you're enjoying making music. If someday down the line it turns out to be something that other people are going to look at and like, if it's something that, you're going to set, whatever. The point is, you're enjoying doing it this week. And sometimes, sometimes with creative stuff, you just need to play around a little bit and see what happens. And then, down the line, you sort of wade through all of the things that you produced and say, oh, there's a little nugget here. This is a pretty good drawing, maybe I can rework this or turn, this is a nice painting. Maybe I'll kind of redo it. I like the idea. Maybe I'll kind of redo it, or we'll see what happens. So sometimes a creative project can sort of get its inception with this kind of energy, even if it doesn't really get to the end result. But you know what? Maybe there's no end result. Maybe you just enjoyed making a painting or coloring or something like that. Coloring is very popular now, right? I'm giving you ideas in type, and then you take it and run with it and do what you want to do. So that's a really, really good thing. Now, let's talk about everybody else, because you're handling this energy wonderful. You're handling this energy great. You understand it's nebulous, but it's active too. Why is it active? Because Mars, you remember Mars, the planet of action and activity. Mars is, first of all, still coming out of the shadow of his retrograde. He's also out of bounds, that is beyond the limits of the orbit of the sun, right? The sun only gets to it only gets so high in the sky or so low in the sky. Mars is beyond those limits, so he's out of bounds. So we get this sort of erratic energy. Erratic Mars square to Neptune. Mars is in Gemini, square to Neptune. All right, that's not so good. But, Mars square Neptune, Mars in relationship to Neptune, can often send people off on a crusade. This is, Neptune inspires, right? I'm going to go do this thing, and it sends people off on a crusade, which would be fine Well, no. I mean, like crusade is not so fine. But you get the okay, like, but maybe I'm gonna go do this thing would be okay if you were acting on good information. If you knew what you were doing, if you're gonna go do something really kind of extreme and you're gonna really, this is it, here I come. It would be good if you knew what the hell you were talking about. And this week is not the time for that. That happens relatively early. It sort of bookends the Sun and Mars, so Sun and Mercury thing. Bookends. Well, yeah, because Mars goes on to square the Sun. Now, here we have an aspect that always kind of pushes us into action. And here's the problem with this week. We have the confusion of Neptune, and then we have the activity of Mars. Right? Mars at the beginning, all the way through this, Mars is pushing us to act. So I'm telling you, sit back, binge watch the movies, do a creative project, because that's at least somewhat martial. You're at least doing something. You want to be doing something. You don't want to be sitting down. You want to be active. You want to be active because you got to get rid of that Mars energy. You got to use it. So, yeah, you could listen to the music, but, make some music. You can read a book, but, write a book or a little piece of one or a poem. Do something with the energy. Now, folks that don't do something with the energy, well, some of them are just going to get riled up and go, the whole thing. People just flying off the rails. They got a cause that they're crazy about, and they're probably, so they've got all the wrong information and they're making a big commotion about it and all that. That's one thing. The other thing is Mars, Neptune. Watch out on the roads. On the roads, it's really a recipe for trouble. Mars in Gemini, that's Mercury's sign. Mars is in Gemini, Mercury's sign, rules cars and things like that, cars and transportation. And Mercury himself is conjunct Neptune in Pisces, where he's, not necessarily dealing with things on a factual basis and handling things the way he likes. So he's not really a watery planet. He's not too happy, right? So we have this kind of recipe for people to drive like maniacs, to drive way too fast. Race car drivers, for example, very frequently have Mars Neptune aspects in their chart, but it's about going beyond the boundaries, about pushing the engine, Mars, beyond the boundaries, Neptune. So, we're talking about going over the speed limit, and oh, the hell with that stop sign. Who really needs that? See, and Saturn's way too far back in Pisces. This is all happening at the end of Pisces and Gemini. This is Saturn hasn't caught up to this yet. He's not going to have a lot to say about it. He's not really able to put the brakes on any of this. So we're looking at a time when people are going to go a little, they're going to get riled up about a cause, and they're probably not going to exhibit their absolute best driving skills. You might also see all kinds of problems showing up around public transportation. Recently, we've had major snafus about that in the Long Island area. So these are the types of things we're going to be dealing with. The Sun, Mercury, distorting our perception. It's like one of those fisheye mirrors, it's like you see the things, but they're bent out of shape. They're bent out of proportion. And then we have Mars saying, we got to act. We got to do something. We can't just sit still. We got to do something. Some folks, not you, but some folks are going to have issues with this. As we get towards the weekend, right along about Friday, late Thursday into Friday, the moon crosses over to join the other planets. Remember, all the planets are sandwiched between Pluto at the very, very last degree of Capricorn, and Mars, who's making his way out through the end of Gemini, the later but not the latest degrees of Gemini. So when the moon gets in there, again next week, the little bit of perspective that we had, the little bit of perspective that we managed to carry through the beginning of the week, because the moon at least was reflecting back some of its light to the other planets and the sun. Now the moon has ducked under and he's with the other planets in this little mix, and that's sort of not great for maintaining perspective on things. So that's likely to be a little bit of an issue as well. Well, that's a very long explanation for a very confusing week. Also keep in mind, now that I think about it, Pluto at the last degrees of Capricorn is also the last degrees at the last minutes of Capricorn, because next week he's going to go into Aquarius, and we'll have a special video about that. You want to subscribe so you'll get that. But anyway, Pluto at the last degrees, at last moments of Capricorn, is really shaking those power structures that he's been rattling since 2008. And so, again, that's going to make folks feel uneasy, and that uneasiness is going to be misinterpreted and translated into action. Watch the news at your own risk. Anyways, be back with a midweek video that'll be, benign, and then we'll have more forecasts next week, and then it's Pluto in Capricorn time, Pluto in Aquarius time. I've been saying Pluto in Capricorn since forever, so and we'll take things one step at a time.